Well, hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Gifted Table. I am your excited and delighted host, Dr. Melanie Harris, and I'm just amazed that I have this beautiful queen on today who will be speaking to us. She is, let her tell her story. I'm gonna just have to let her tell her story, but we're gonna be talking about leadership today, equity, and leadership equity. So make sure you pull your seat up real close because it is about to go down right here at the Gifted Table. All right, Gifted Table fam, please join me with welcoming the amazing, the wonderful, the talented, the gifted Dr. Candace Cofield. Welcome in, sis.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here.
I am so glad you're here. So glad you're here. So, Dr. Cofield and I met in our current organization where we both work in the Bay Area. And she is a force to be not welcomed with, but a force to be reckoned with. She is a serious force. And she is all about children, equity, community, and just keeping it real for all the people. So, Dr. Candace Cofield, please just tell the Gifted Table family a little bit about your background and your leadership experience.
Sure. I come to education having fell in love from the first day that I hit a school. I tell my story that I hit the classroom and I've never left. I've always been a student or a teacher or an administrator or now district leader. So I've just been in lots of different types of schools as well, which informs a lot of the work that I do now. I've been in public school, private school, East Coast, West Coast. So I've done lots of different things in terms of leadership, leading schools, but also leading at the district level in terms of helping school districts map out courses like novel courses, career pathways, innovative programs, lots of different things. I also do consulting on the side. I'm very passionate about curriculum and instruction and adult learning. So however you want to talk about it, I've probably done it, but we'll see how this goes.
I know I love it. And I love it. And the thing that, and I often say that I'm a lifetime learner, like I'm always learning. I'm always learning something. And when you're passionate about what you do, which I know you totally are, I had no idea about how much your passion was for adult learners, though.
Mhm.
Not that now it's clicking for me because you're
Mhm.
often doing tons of professional learning for us in our current organization. But you're right. If the adults don't know, how do we expect the young people to know? If the adults aren't learning, how do we expect the young people to learn?
Absolutely.
So tell me about your East meets West and West meets East Coast experiences.
Yeah, so I was trained to be an educator in Center X. If you don't know what Center X is, it's right out of UCLA, a very reputable program. And so the entire way I was trained to be an educator was all around social justice. So I was trained to look at education literally as a life or death situation. And so approaching it that way, that's part of my passion, right? And I was also trained to have an urgency with the work. So if you're leading the work, you have to have that eye towards equity because there's an urgency to making things right. They haven't been right for a long time. And part of why I focus on adults often is many of us experience school in a way that doesn't benefit our students and our staff and our families now. So it can be really challenging for us to rethink how we even approach education because we didn't experience what we want to provide for our students.
That is so true. And I often say, as teachers, and I am guilty of this, I know that I am, as teachers, we tend to teach the way we were taught, that we
Absolutely.
felt was the best learning experience for us. And it does not mean that that same type of strategies or learning style works first for every student, and secondly, for today's students. So how
Absolutely.
do you even approach that with adults?
It really helps some of the basic things, right? Like a lot of us are familiar with the concept of active listening, right? And
Say
sometimes
what? I'm just
active
playing.
listening. There's like some basic things that we can do where it can help us critically think about our approach, right? So if I think my approach is sound, it's right, it worked for me, right? What if I actively listen to my students? Right now, I can critically assess whether or not I'm on the right track or not, right? I might be, but if I'm only thinking from what worked for me, then how do I, that's not a good measure. That's not the criteria that I should use to see if I'm being effective with my students or whatever audience I serve.
And how has that been working with the people who you serve now?
I mean, your outcomes as well. There's so many different ways to look at it, but I would say specifically around that particular notion, that's a way to help adults kind of take a step back. It may have worked for you, maybe back then, but is that really meeting the needs of who you serve today? And how do you
Mhm.
know?
Have you asked the learner what they've learned?
And
Have you
then
asked
actually
the
listen
learner
to their
if they've
response,
learned?
right? Care about what they actually have to say after you ask that question.
Yes, that
And
is
if
so
it
important.
doesn't meet with your preconceived notion, how do you respond?
So, are we getting into preconceived notions, or are we talking about those biases that we have?
Oh, we all have them. Yeah. We
Mm-hmm.
all have those biases for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us are not aware. And that's foundational to equity work and leadership, right? Is understanding what biases are and the harm that they can do. I'm obviously in the world of social justice and education. This is foundational concept work. But a lot of times people say they talk about biases as if they're all negative. And that's
Right.
not necessarily the case,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding how we've been set up to fail in terms of serving our students and our communities, our educational communities, particularly those of color, right? That's one thing, but having biases in and of themselves, right, is not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Our critical understanding of how they operate and how they perpetuate problems in our schools, that's what we need to focus on.
So, when we're talking about how this really impacts in the schools, right?
Hmm.
In the classroom, because that's the most critical space. But
Hmm.
it also happens outside the classroom as
Yeah,
well, right?
absolutely.
It could be happening during lunchtime. It could happen during recess time. It can happen in the library. It's just all of these spaces. So I just want people to understand we're not just talking about those individuals who work in a classroom directly with students. If you work in the space
Absolutely.
of a school, this means you as well. This means
Yeah.
you. And we all
Bus
know,
drivers, lunchrooms,
yes,
everywhere. Yes. Front
everywhere,
office, the
everywhere,
hallways, it's everywhere.
everyone.
Hmm.
It's everywhere. And so working with adults who some who may have, a desire to really identify these things and change or replace behavior, that is great. But it
Hmm.
has to be when you're working with those with a fixed mindset. They
Hmm.
have no intention to grow. That
Right.
has to cause the most damaging impact, I would imagine, to
Absolutely.
those we serve. So, how do
Yes.
you work with leaders with identifying those things that might be on their campuses or within themselves so that they can start changing the course of the culture?
You want to make sure that they understand you are here to support, right? You don't ever want to come in attacking anyone or anything, right? You also want to be consistent. If folks feel like this is a one off, okay, or you're just going to come around, I can just ignore, or just hope this
Mm-hmm.
goes away,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to be an effective approach. Having human relationships with people is foundational, right? Letting them know that you really truly are here to solve a problem, right? And that problem is what you're focused on. You're not focused on them necessarily, right? Like, how do we address the problem here and what might that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can start to turn hearts a bit when you talk about the benefits, right? So if we can identify what the problem is, that's what we're focused on. We're not focused on you because
Right.
no one wants to feel like everyone has a concept of who they are. It's personal, professional, right? And if they feel like you're attacking the core of who they are, everything
Hmm.
shuts down, right? There's no point even continuing any type of work, consulting, development, initiatives. Is not going to go anywhere. So once you can get that understanding, that shared understanding that we're going to work together, right? I'm not here to attack you. We are going to work together to address a particular problem, but also then exposing the benefits, right? If we were
Hmm.
able to attack this problem together, what could be some benefits? People are naturally selfish, right? What's in it for me? Is my life going to get a little bit
That
more
part.
peaceful, a little bit more
Hmm.
efficient, right? Am I going to get some better
Hmm.
outcomes?
Are you
All
going to
those,
disrupt my life
right. Is
and
this
what
going
I'm
to be
doing?
like 10 new things I have to do?
Hmm. Hmm.
All that, if that can be clarified and communicated up front, then you can start to get some traction. But it takes effort. It's work of like being a human being to others, helping them understand where you're coming from, what they can expect. Then you're
Hmm.
more able to kind of get some partnership to begin exploring what it might mean. And it always starts with self work.
You have to start with yourself. I mean, again, yes, you have to. Don't tell me what to do, ma'am or sir, if you haven't worked on you. I'm
Yes.
just talking over there to the pillow.
Yes.
So, so it's over there. So it's over there. So
Yes.
knowing that you have been so invested in this work, and it truly is a testament to just how amazing you are with leading this work, for carrying this work, and being an influencer in this work. What has been some of your personal peaks and valleys doing this work that is so impactful?
The valleys for me is that I'm very passionate about this work. I understand the stakes involved. I understand the urgency, right? Think of my background. Anytime a door opens just a little bit where I can stick my foot through and kind of crack it
Hmm.
open for the movement, if you will, I get excited. I get passionate. I'm like, okay, I'm a gatherer. I can get the resources together, the folks, the people, the things. And valleys come when I realize, oh, they weren't serious.
Hmm.
Oh, this was a check the box item for some other folks. Like,
Equity?
oh, okay. I thought I had a whole crowd behind me. And then I look around like, oh, I'm by myself. Oh, okay. Uh, so that's definitely been challenging when I feel like I'm not the one woman band.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
also when you see something that's working, that's kind of making some traction, but when it gets compared to some traditional measures that have nothing to do with the work that you're doing, right? You're
Hmm.
caught up in that old way of doing business that doesn't really translate and correlate to the way that we're trying to reimagine schools today. So those are definitely
Hmm.
some valleys. Also, just
Okay.
being misunderstood, right? Thinking
Hmm.
that people not fully understanding when you maybe are centering a particular marginalized group, that
Hmm.
becomes like, oh, well, then you're against everyone else. So
Hmm.
those are more predictable, but it's still, can be disappointing, right? When folks
Yeah.
try to use that as a way to kind of opt out of the work as well.
So is it a misunderstanding of the work, or is it a misunderstanding of you doing the work?
It depends on the situation, but it can be both. Sometimes it's
Mm.
the messenger, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, if it's coming from her, I hear it one way. Where if it's coming
Hmm.
from someone else or from a different source, then, it may be received a little bit differently.
Hmm.
Sometimes people do just generally have ignorance, right? They just don't understand. And maybe that might be on me, right? Maybe I'm not communicating it clearly enough. Maybe I need to come at a different angle. And then sometimes it's just a straight up excuse, right? It's a way to avoid. You asked the question, right? It's a way to avoid, like, okay, let me throw a monkey wrench in this
Can I
situation.
get an excuse for 500, please? Thank you.
Exactly. So, yeah, sometimes it can be genuinely a misunderstanding. And those can become amazing testimonies. I'll give you a
Yes.
story. So there was a classified employee who was involved in some of the professional development I do around anti-bias, anti-racism. And she approached me. First, we were working in a group setting, and she went and approached me individually. And she said, I believe it was either the phrase white supremacy culture or whiteness,
Mm-hmm.
something around in
Mm-hmm.
that realm. I want to say she said something like she felt like, we were automatically calling white people racist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, or she was saying maybe we should take that phrase out of the training because it's offensive. The beautiful thing about her coming to me is that we ended up having lots of conversations, not me explaining everything to her. She
Mm-hmm.
did her own research and her own homework because it was important for her to not only hear it from me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, but by the time we continued to have conversations, her doing her own research and having some sounding boards from some other folks, beautiful thing about her is she wanted to be trained on how to do these trainings. And
Wow.
she co-presented many different professional development sessions, and we used her testimony. We used her example, and it was very powerful because she's Caucasian, and so
Mm-hmm.
for her to be vulnerable and transparent about her
Mm-hmm.
journey getting to that point, and then it becoming a moment where she wanted to lean in further, like one of the best outcomes possible.
That's powerful. And that takes you from a valley to a peak, right?
Amen. Amen.
So tell us more about some of these peaks you've experienced in this work.
Oh man, I don't even know where to start. There's so many, but I would say I'll go with a recent one.
Okay.
Seeing the work that's been done with students, lifting and centering, intentionally seeking out student voice, I would say has been just awe-inspiring me for me to watch and be able to help facilitate. So obviously, it's so critical to have students at the center of the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adults can be gatekeepers, right? And like we talked about earlier, we can think we know.
Can be.
We
It's
can
my
think we know,
classroom.
right? Seeing a lot of the work happen over time. So nothing is just going to happen immediately, but watching us start in a place where we are really focused on the self work that needs to happen. Of course, some folks are leaning
Mm-hmm.
in harder than others, but that foundational work led us to the point where then I could coach some adults to take these same concepts and share them with
Mm-hmm.
students in age appropriate ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
That started where it created space for students to have conversations they weren't typically having, right? Now, they weren't completely coming out with all the things, right? But
Right.
having the opportunity to build those relationships, have those conversations over time led us to the point where the trust was there and they
Right.
really got vulnerable with us and helped us see here's the issues we care about right now that if you
Mm-hmm.
really truly want to partner with us to make our lives better in these schools, here's our issues. Okay. Now we're at a crossroads. Are you serious, adults? Are you really going to listen to us? Are you really going to help us? Are you going to include us? Are you going to take our idea and run with it and then go make some money off of it? Or are you going to keep us as true partners along the journey? So seeing how incredibly intelligent and bright and articulate our students are about what they care about under this topic of equity, anti-racism, diversity, inclusion, however you want to say it. It's all social justice and education for me.
Mm-hmm.
Whichever topic, whatever label we're using now is fine.
Right.
But to see them be unabashed in their artwork around it, their quotes, their leadership, right? They're putting on events, they're collaborating, they're coming up with just amazing artifacts that document the legacy they're actually leaving for themselves, their peers, their cousins, the little babies coming behind
Mm-hmm.
them. I would say that that's definitely a mountaintop for me.
And you have to remember, though, Dr. Cofield, if it had not been for the seeds you planted and that you took time to till the soil, and I
Yeah,
know the soil had to be hard sometimes and very difficult to till,
absolutely. Hmm.
and you had to water those seeds over and over again in
Over and
order
over.
for them to take root, right? And
Yes.
in order for them to begin to grow, you had to put yourself in a place that's centered around students, that's centered around the importance of the civil rights of everyone in order for these things to grow. So please, it's just if no one else is going to do it, let me acknowledge and say thank you. Thank you for just being dogmatic about what it is, for being so passionate about what you do. Because you may have talked about how you look back, on some other times and people weren't behind you, but look how you're leading these young people to be the next generation. So when they look back,
Absolutely.
they're going to see the trajectory of their work, of their voice, of their presence, of them being heard, of their passion for years to come. So thank you for that
And
work.
their role in helping to train these adults.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
It's
Amazing.
powerful.
Yeah.
It is powerful. So being in this work and focusing on social justice, let me ask you this. If you had not ever taken the training, if you had never had that in your own academic background, where would you be right now? Would you be doing the same work? Do you think you would have found it?
Probably. I think probably something similar.
Mm-hmm. Tell me
Because
why.
I would tell you why. I was born and raised in Oakland, California.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming up in a time where I saw Black excellence all around me. And I grew up in a dysfunctional family and household, like many of us. However, there were still always expectations on my life. And so I've literally even brought my mother in. Many people know about Ruby Bridges, but my mom was a local Ruby Bridges. And so here in Oakland, when there were moments to integrate local schools, my mom was one of those students who was one of the first Black students to integrate a school here in Oakland and a college prep school. So not just any school where they really were trying to make sure we couldn't come in there. And so her experiences being a first, not even wanting to, she wasn't like yeah, I'm about to do this. My grandmother said, no, you are going to do this. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so she did it, and, continues to have such a powerful story to tell. That was my mother on her side. And my mom was one of those who I could never come home and say I didn't have homework. She
Mm.
just wasn't happening. And so then my dad was connected with like the Black Panther Party. He was connected with, a lot of those who had arguments like against the Vietnam War, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so it was just in the ether, like conversations we had, expectations that were put on my life, what I was exposed to being raised in the Black church in multiple
Mm-hmm.
different facets. Being in oratorical fest, being in music. My aunt was an opera singer. I just had so many varied experiences, but a lot of it always was kind of, again, under an umbrella of here's who we are, here's our
Mm-hmm.
history, and here's what your responsibility is at some level, right? Um, to be able to have an impact, right? And definitely make sure that you always remember where you come from and that you bring some of that back.
And knowing that you've had such a rich, oh my goodness, such a rich um, background with your family influencers. I mean, my goodness, that's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. What would you say, if any, and I'm not saying you've had any, what would you say have been some challenges that you've faced as a Black woman in leadership roles?
One recurring situation is a perception that me being a Black woman leading this work is that I only care about Black people, right? That I'm only here to speak equity and excellence and belonging and outcomes for Black students or Black staff or Black families. And so that is frustrating. I'll be honest. As hard as I work, as much as I, collaborate with so many others and try to make very clear that these are not single issues, right? That all of our issues are connected in many ways. And that the work we do is not just for Black people, right? If we have, for example, schools where they're predominantly white, they need this work too, right? And so that is a misconception that I get just being a Black woman in particular. Also, I would say as a Black woman, I get the whole representation issue, right?
Mm,
Like if we're talking about Black issues, that we all have the same perspective on whatever we're talking about. And obviously we don't, right? And so um, also having ideas, having real experience outside of my current context, sometimes it's like a shock. And it's like, well, maybe you don't really know this or
Mhm.
that, or is that coming from you? Or this needs to be vetted through a whole nother committee, or how about you just give this
That,
idea to someone else, let them deliver it. It might land a little differently. All of that comes along with being a Black female leader, I would say.
mhm,
Well, that's
mhm,
been my experience. I would say that those definitely have been my
mhm.
experience. And of course, the super tired. Oh, you're just too aggressive. You
Not
know,
super tired.
I'm so tired. You're aggressive. You're too direct. Okay. So
I
yeah,
think I need some
that
water.
all comes with it, you know.
Yeah, people need to change their vocabulary when it comes to adjectives
Yes.
for some of us.
For sure. Right?
They
Because,
really need to
change
look
my
into
gender, change my skin tone. And now it's, wow, that's just leadership, right? It's
it. Gosh.
professional, it's innovative, it's creative.
Hmm.
But the package I'm in, it's aggression, it's too direct. And can we talk about your tone?
Yes, some of those things. And we've shared that here on the gifted table. We've had other leaders on here speak about their experience in whatever profession they're in. And it's just still heartbreaking that
Yeah.
so many of us in different industries are still facing these systematic things. What is the impact that you would love to make in the community? And I'm saying the community, very general. It could
Yeah.
be your community at home, it could be your professional community, it could be your faith-based community, it could,
Mhm.
whatever community it is. What is the impact that you would like to make?
I would love to be able to have some small role, large role, any type of role in, like what some folks may refer to as like generational curses, if you will. That may be
Mm-hmm.
dramatic in some sense. In another sense, just the notion that we can talk openly about
Mm-hmm.
things that used to be swept under the rug routinely, that we've stuffed down inside of us, and that continue to poison us and literally kill us or continue to harm us. What in many spaces, both personally and professionally, I would love to continue to have a role in helping folks see it's okay and it's probably actually necessary to have safe spaces where we talk about the things that have been harming us in ways where we can figure out repair, restoration, transformation. That would be the big, broad goal I want to have.
So, in that same spirit, some future goals that Dr. Candace Cofield, you are either currently working on personally and or professionally. What are some things that's in your coffer?
It is a life goal for me to publish an actual book. I've published some articles and some academic pieces before, but I haven't, I've started on a couple of different books. I have ideas, but I haven't fully fleshed them all out. But I actually believe enough in what I'm writing right now. And I'm again the old school version of just some simple, straightforward things, right? To communicate with a book. I know we're in an e-based world, so I might go ahead and
Yes.
get a electronic version as well. But I'm working on a book that would kind of encompass all of these things that you're asking me, right? My background, my
Mm-hmm.
experiences, and my expertise in education, kind of all packaged in one thing. And I
I
think
love
that's what
that.
stopped me because sometimes it's like, I don't want to be too narrow. You got to think about your audience, but like, how can I reach as many people as possible without, having a watered down message? But I think I'm on the right track. So that's one way I want to help continue to carry my message because I'm one person, right?
Yeah.
And I can't kind of be
Yes.
everywhere as much as I want to be. But maybe my book can help further the kind of impact I hope to have, or the legacy I want to leave in this world.
I am so excited for you. And I am like on the ground,
You are.
at the ground table. Look, let me put
Right,
my feet up
right.
real close to the
Exclusive
table.
news, exclusive dropped here. Okay.
You heard it here, people.
You heard it
You
here
heard it
first.
here at the table.
Yes.
Yes, girl, you better leave all these gifts here. Okay, sis. Now, looking back, what would you tell your younger self about how to get others to get acquainted with the need of social justice?
I would tell her to continue to deeply, deeply interrogate what it means to love yourself.
Mm,
What does that look like? What does it mean? What barriers are you going to come up against? Um, the more you can like fully know yourself, which has so many different tentacles, right? It can go off in so many
mm,
different directions. I would say definitely lean into that heavily and understand that you can map out your life because I'm A-type personality. You can have it all outlined, laid out, mapped out, but it may not go that way, and that's fine, but keep holding on, right? The pathway where you're gonna may change, but the destination won't. And so just being encouraged to like weather many storms, right? But it's all gonna be worth it. If you just keep persistent. So I'm glad I never left the classroom. I'm glad I've always been a
mm.
student, teacher, coach, leader, right? I don't think I'm supposed to be anywhere else.
Love that. I love that. Now, looking ahead and all
Mhm.
the things that you have in your future, what is it that you need and what is it that you want?
I need to make sure that I have healthy boundaries. This is one because I am so passionate and I love so hard and my work ethic is pretty top tier. That I don't need to wear myself into the ground because I am one person, right? And so that's
Mm,
why it's really important to continue to share the gifts with others, coach them up, help them understand that then they can do the things that, those who are called to do it to spread the good work around. So I need healthy boundaries because it's very easy for me to just go so hard and forget about myself. I want people to not be threatened by this work. That's what I want. I want people to see
mm,
the beauty of it and how it just would make much so many things easier, right? The more that we fight and resist things, we're like
mhm,
missing, blocking blessings that we could just be enjoying. And so I would say those are
mhm,
two things at the top of my mind: my own healthy boundaries,
mhm.
and also continuing to share the beauty of the work, right? It doesn't need to be this scary thing or this thing we need to fight about, right? That's what I would hope for.
And I love your need is that you want to create healthy boundaries, but I would love for Dr. Candace Cofield to also create helping boundaries
You
by
said,
allowing others to help you do this work.
yeah,
You're right, you're only one person.
yes,
So, yeah, put that helping along with those healthy ones too.
yes,
Because,
absolutely, for sure.
yeah, we need some folks to step up to look. I'm putting myself in the we to help with the work.
Come
I'm
on,
putting
we.
myself in
Come on,
come
we.
on, we. Stop playing. Well, Dr. Cofield, it has been my blessing to have you here at the Gifted Table. Thank you so much for sharing not only your talent, but your gifts, and you left it all here. I mean, if somebody wasn't taking notes and picking up these golden nuggets, these diamonds, and all these things, then something is wrong. So thank you so much for being here. I hope this will not be your last seat taken at the table. Please come back and
It
join us
was my
again,
absolute honor. Thank you for having me.
of course. And for you, my gifted table family, don't forget, make sure that you not only share this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can be notified when we have our next episodes of The Gifted Table. Don't forget as well, look back at some old videos and tell us your comments. What did you think about this? Leadership equity, getting what you need as well as providing it for those who need it. Let us know your thoughts. We would love to hear from you. So as always, remember, stay grounded, innovative, fierce, transparent every day. In other words, stay gifted. And I'll see you next time.